A small village nestled under vast blue skies stirred to life every morning with a rhythm of quiet routine. Beneath the shade of a grand ancient tree, the ancestor's statue stood firm and silent. It had watched over generations, its presence woven into the fabric of daily life. Each day, the villagers approached with reverence, lighting small fires, singing their morning hymns, and leaving offerings at its base. The stone face of the ancestor was steady, its expression unreadable, as if silently blessing the peace that enveloped the village. One morning, as the air hung heavy with the scent of burning herbs, the silence was shattered. A sound, a voice, boomed out deep and resonant. It rolled across the village, stopping everyone in their tracks. The message was cryptic, the tone commanding, the meaning unclear. Villagers froze, ears straining. The words faded into echoes, but the unease remained, rippling through the community like a restless wind. The square buzzed with alarm. Whispers spread quickly, quiet at first, then louder. Farmers left their tools in the fields. Merchants paused mid-sale. Children clung to their mothers, eyes wide with confusion. What had the ancestor said? What could it mean? The statue, which had been nothing more than an eternal observer, had spoken, and its message was anything but comforting. The elders, sensing the mounting panic, called for a meeting. In the shadow of the statue, the oldest and most respected gathered, leaning heavily on their walking sticks, their faces creased with worry. The head elder raised a hand to quiet the crowd and spoke of unity, urging calm while they sought understanding. As the meeting wore on, one by one, the elders began recounting the past. Long ago, they said, the statue had spoken once before, and that time had brought turmoil, fear, and loss. They described the disaster that had followed, their voices heavy with memory. The tale hung over the villagers like a dark cloud, and each heart beat faster at the thought of what the new message might bring. Generations ago, the great sculptor worked tirelessly to carve the ancestor's statue from a massive block of black stone. Villagers say his hands moved as though guided by a spirit, chiseling out the serene face that would watch over their people for centuries. When he finally unveiled it, he declared the statue a guardian of peace, a beacon of wisdom. The community came to regard it as a silent protector, a figure of strength that demanded no words, only respect and reverence. But the elders often spoke of an older story whispered from one generation to the next. It was said that if the statue ever broke its silence, the land would face great upheaval. Long ago, they claimed, it had spoken once. Its words foretold the arrival of war and despair. And when the day came that the prophecy unfolded, chaos swept through the village, leaving scars that time could not erase. Ever since, the statue's quiet presence became a comfort, a reassurance that peace would hold as long as it remained still. A voice of doubt rose from among the villagers. A younger member of the community, always questioning, always seeking, began to challenge the elders' tales. Was it truly a prophecy, or merely a coincidence turned into legend? Their questions rippled through the village, sowing unease. As the debates grew louder, some began to wonder if their belief in the statue's power had been misplaced all along. In the marketplace, the tension was palpable. Merchants whispered behind their stalls. Farmers paused mid-sale to share rumors. A heated discussion broke out in one corner, voices rising as accusations flew. Fear mingled with disbelief, and soon the air buzzed with conflicting stories. Some clung to the old tales, others sided with the skeptic, and all felt the strain of a village on the brink of doubt. Through it all, the village's deep traditions persisted. Around the cooking fires and beneath the shade of ancient trees, elders shared folk stories that intertwined with the mystery. They spoke of the ancestors' trials, the sacred rituals, the signs that had come before. The younger ones listened, torn between respecting the past and questioning the present. The whispers of the ancients stirred something deep within the village, a blend of fear, pride, and the unshakable bond of shared history. The air grew heavy as the village broke apart into factions. Some whispered that the statue's words were a call to arms, urging them to defend their home against an unknown threat. Others insisted that it was a warning, a plea to avoid the mistakes of the past. Raised voices turned neighbors into opponents, each side pointing fingers and hurling accusations. The once united village began to unravel, its people no longer seeing each other as kin, but as obstacles. A few villagers started sharpening their tools and muttering about preparing for a fight. They claimed that the statue had given them fair warning and that hesitation would only invite disaster. Their confidence stirred unease among those who still hoped for peace. "Think carefully," one voice cautioned, "before you bring harm upon us all. If we misunderstand, if we move too quickly, we'll destroy what little peace we have left." But not everyone wanted calm. An old warrior stepped forward, his voice like a storm. "The ancestor does not speak without reason," he bellowed. "If we wait, we die. If we act, we stand a chance." His words set a fire beneath some, while others shrank back, unsure if his passion was wisdom or folly. Amid the uproar, a wandering storyteller began weaving an unsettling tale. They claimed the prophecy was not what it seemed, that the message carried a hidden meaning no one had yet uncovered. Their words, measured and mysterious, cast doubt on the warriors' calls for action. The villagers listened, some nodding in agreement, others scowling in frustration. A neighboring chieftain, known for his cunning, watched from the edge of the crowd. Slowly he spoke up, offering his support if the village would accept his guidance. He spoke of alliances, protection, and shared strength. While some saw his intervention as wise, others suspected he sought control under the guise of assistance. Amid this growing chaos, the protagonist stumbled upon a clue, something buried in the past, hidden in the shadows of the village's history. The discovery sent a chill through their spine. They knew it would only deepen the distrust if revealed, yet keeping silent might be worse. As fear and suspicion grew, friendships shattered. Those who once stood shoulder to shoulder turned their backs on each other. Old alliances crumbled, and the village's foundation weakened. The tension simmered until it felt as though the air itself might snap. Every argument, every revelation pushed the community closer to the brink. The storm was no longer brewing, it was inevitable. The villagers gathered, their faces tense with anticipation. The air was thick with unease as the sacred ceremony began. Hushed voices gave way to solemn chants, each word a plea for guidance. All eyes turned toward the statue, its silent visage towering over them. Then, without warning, the voice came again, deep, resonant, and haunting. Its cryptic message filled the square, leaving the villagers frozen in shock. As the echoes faded, the murmurs began. "What does it mean this time?" a voice called out. "Is it warning us to prepare for war? Or is it a sign to seek peace?" Arguments broke out, louder and more heated than before. Some shouted that the statue demanded they take up arms, while others insisted it was a caution against reckless violence. In the midst of the chaos, the protagonist moved quietly, searching for answers. Hidden away, they discovered a truth long buried, a detail that reframed the statue's words entirely. The revelation left them trembling, knowing the weight it carried. But the choice was not simple. Sharing what they had found could save the village, yet it could also put them in grave danger. To speak or to stay silent, both came with risks. As the arguments escalated, lines were drawn more clearly than ever. Neighbors turned on neighbors, each side convinced they alone understood. The statue's message, the once united village fractured into opposing camps. The protagonists stepped forward, the revelation heavy on their mind. The villagers fell silent, watching, waiting. In that moment they knew that whatever path they chose would shape the future of their home. The tension reached its peak as the final confrontation loomed. Words became sharper, actions bolder, and as the sun dipped below the horizon, the village stood on the edge of an irreversible moment, their fate balanced on the edge of a decision yet to be made. The square fell silent, but the fractures remained. Old bonds had been tested and broken. Friends turned their backs on one another and families stood divided. Suspicion hung in the air, leaving the once united community adrift in an ocean of mistrust. The truth emerged slowly, like the morning sun cutting through the mist. The statue's voice, once a revered mystery, was revealed to be neither divine nor prophetic. It was the work of an unseen hand, a manipulation meant to steer the village toward chaos. The revelation rocked the villagers' faith. They had relied on the statue as a symbol of guidance, but now its words were stained with deceit. Arguments erupted anew. Some clung stubbornly to the old beliefs, while others turned on their neighbors, blaming them for the disarray. Trust, once the foundation of the community, had been shattered. The village struggled to move forward, each step hindered by lingering doubts. But within the wreckage, some sought a different path. A few came forward, humble and remorseful, offering apologies and asking for forgiveness. Their gestures, though small, began to repair the first cracks in the village's unity. Others were not so lucky. Those who had driven the discord, who had taken advantage of the confusion for personal gain, were cast out. The community demanded accountability, and those found guilty faced exile or condemnation. The village's judgment was harsh but necessary, a warning to any who might try to exploit the community's faith again. In the quiet that followed, the protagonist sat alone, reflecting on what had been gained and lost. The journey had changed them, leaving marks that could not be erased. Triumphs had come at a cost, and the lessons learned would stay with them forever. As the days passed, the village began to heal. Though scarred, it was not destroyed. The people rebuilt their homes, their trust, and their traditions. They vowed to look to one another rather than rely on mysterious voices from stone. The statue remained, but it was now a silent reminder of what the community could endure and overcome. The village was forever changed, but it stood strong, ready to face the future with the resilience it had earned through hardship and redemption. In the days that followed, the village sat in quiet reflection. The once lively square seemed somber, as if the land itself had absorbed the weight of what had passed. Slowly, the villagers began to speak, not with anger or accusations, but with regret. They recognized how quickly they had turned against each other, how fear had shattered the trust that held them together. They understood now what their discord had cost them, a lesson etched into their hearts as a painful reminder of what they could not let happen again. In the light of this realization, voices began to call for unity. They spoke of the bonds that had kept the village strong for generations, of the strength found in their shared purpose. With each word, the scattered fragments of the community started to realign. The people came together, determined to rebuild not just their homes, but their faith in one another. They resolved to protect the harmony they now understood was so fragile. Near the end of their long discussions, a collective vow was made. They promised that the statue's voice would never again be a source of fear or anger. It would remain silent, a symbol of the peace they would preserve through their own actions. the villagers swore to guard their unity so that no cryptic words would ever again tear them apart. The protagonist, having endured the trials of betrayal and redemption, emerged changed. Their insights and resilience became a beacon for those around them. Others turned to them for guidance, seeking wisdom to ensure the same mistakes would not be repeated. The protagonist shared their hard-earned lessons, not with pride, but with the humility of one who had walked through the storm and come out the other side. The village found its footing once more, laying down a foundation of mutual respect and understanding. They drew strength from their shared experiences, each person contributing to a renewed sense of purpose. Over time, the square grew lively again, filled not with conflict, but with the laughter and conversation of a people who had learned at last that their greatest strength was in standing together.